Happy May the 4th, everyone. Even though the May episode of the Blue Post podcast has already come out, we knew we wanted to do something special for May the 4th. This episode requires a bit of backstory. When we first decided to do the Blue Post podcast, it was December, and Rogue One was about to come out. And we were thinking, hey, why don't we record our initial impressions of Rogue One and share them with everyone? Great idea, except family was in town, editing got delayed, we kept discussing how we wanted the show to work. December became January, January became February, February became March. It was out of date. But we still liked it, and we still wanted to share it. So since Rogue One has since come out on digital HD in March and on Blu-ray in April, we realized, hey, it's kind of relevant again, and since it's May the 4th, there seemed like there was no better time than now to put it out. So just one quick small disclaimer before you jump in. This is our initial impressions of the film. At the time of recording, for myself, Kelly, and Charles, we'd only seen the film once. Chris had seen it a second time. I know for myself, there are some things where my opinion has changed. Keep that in mind as you enjoy.
Guys, it was a big week this week. We had Rogue One.
Yeah, we did.
I mean, that's big on its own, I think.
True. I mean, so quickly, or go around the table, start with Kelly, I guess. Where does it rank for you, Star Wars-wise?
Right next to, New Hope for me, which is, I don't know, one of my favorite ones. So, I mean, it's...
top three, maybe?
Yeah, top three, definitely.
Charles?
Yeah. Okay, for me, Empire is 1, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
So,
Sure.
and that's for a lot of people. But this one is, it's right up there. And I haven't decided yet, which one where we're at. Which one's higher, which one's on top.
Yeah.
But they're both up there.
So I'm in the same boat. Empire's been my favorite forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Empire's...
And Rogue One is, right on its heels. And the second time I saw it, it, kind of jumped a little higher. So they're about even in my book. Yours?
Empire is always going to be top, and I don't know if we're ever going to see anything from Star Wars ever top it, which isn't a problem. You have a really great film at the top. No problem at all. I think for me it lands in the weird area where my mood changes on Jedi and A New Hope, where I go back and forth over which one I think is better. And I think this one kind of lands in there to where now it's going to be the third one in the mix of me going, it's one of two through 5, somewhere in there, depending on the day.
But the fact that it ranks with, the original films and you're not putting it in the same ranking as, the prequels is a good sign.
Right. Well, I think anything, there's a big gap there.
Yeah.
This film did something I didn't expect the anthology films to do. And now I'm kind of expecting it, and I'm more excited for the anthology films, where it changed the way that I looked at a 40-year-old movie in A New Hope.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't expect it to affect me in that way, where I was looking at A New Hope in a completely different light with new perspective, and I didn't expect that coming in at all.
Yeah, after watching it, I wanted to go home and watch A New Hope, except it was... because the three of us saw it together.
Yeah.
We were out at 1:30 in the morning. It was no, I probably should go to bed, have work the next day. But man, it was tempting to just sit down on the couch and just be okay, I'm plugging in A New Hope. But I also kind of felt that way when I did a marathon of all 6 going into Force Awakens, where all of a sudden Return of the Jedi changed from being this is the end to this is a stopping point for this time period.
Sure.
Lucasfilm can now be we're just going to go to this point, but they're not afraid to have it affect a film directly that is another part of the saga.
Right. And that's an interesting point, too, because I feel like the closest thing that we can compare Rogue One to is Force Awakens. With Force Awakens, it was it was completely different, right? That was the idea, is that it was the same as A New Hope, but moving forward... It was making changes for the plot. Right.
Yeah.
So, and this one has to fit in between other films.
Right.
And I think that in that regard, it did really, really well.
But I mean, also the fact that, this is the first time we're doing something that's not just the Skywalker family. This is not just, the main story. How is an audience going to treat and react to something that is totally different than anything that's ever been done before?
And I think totally different.
Completely. Yeah. And it's it fits into place so well that it's almost shocking that it just worked that well for them.
Right.
And it makes me excited to see what they do with, the Han Solo movie, or I don't know if I think they said they're a Boba Fett movie maybe too.
They're talking about, the rumors are Boba Fett and an Obi-Wan movie that they're talking
that's
about.
That's rumored, but the Han Solo one for sure.
The Han Solo one's the only one confirmed.
Right, either way, it makes me more excited for those, because I know Charles and I were talking, for Rogue One, we were like, there's not going to be lightsaber fights. There's not going to be, that kind of stuff. What is going to keep us interesting and not just politics and not just like, the government this and that. And it was not like that at all. Like, it had so much good material to bring to the table, which was really good to me.
And for me, in some ways, this was what I kind of wanted the prequels to have been like.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
It was in there, like, there's war going on in some segments
It's
of
heavy.
the movie.
It's
heavy. And it was like, I'm sitting there going, man, if this had been how the prequels had gone, I think the prequels would have been much better received.
Well, so I don't think the prequels are good movies. I think they get a bad rap. I think they're not as bad as people think they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the basic story and outline of what the prequels are isn't bad. To me, it's the execution of what they are.
Yeah, Lucas's world building is fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Storytelling is a little different.
Yeah.
It's,
But going back to what Charles was talking about, the thing that was kind of cool is I remember seeing episode 3 in theaters and being like, oh, it's so cool how that connects back to, to episode 4. And then you see Rogue One and you go, oh, that's even better.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And
this is a step up.
Yeah, you're like, that's different. That's what I wanted. And like, you don't realize that until you see Rogue One. Like, Rogue One completely changes how you look at the entire series of just like, oh, that's what I wanted this entire thing to be.
Right.
In a very cool way.
The thing that I really admired the most about Rogue One is that with other films that we've looked at recently, all of those films are predicated on the idea of nostalgia. This film broke from that. And I mean, it had nostalgia. It wasn't just nostalgia. It wasn't just let's...
To me, it's a new lens. We've never really seen the Empire in this light.
No.
Before. We've never seen sort of the structure, the infrastructure and like the way that they operate and sort of the power that they have. It's always like, oh, they just show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now seeing it from kind of the inside of the machine and like how big that machine actually is terrifying and awesome and sort of gives you a new perspective, new lens to see the films in.
Definitely.
So I guess that's as much as we could talk about without.
Yeah, I know. I think we've hit the point where we're just gonna have to go spoilers for Rogue One.
Anyone watching that hasn't seen Rogue One yet, turn this off and go see it, and then come back. Actually, go see it twice. Then come back.
You should have done that actually before. So rewind the podcast or the video, whatever you're watching, and don't listen to this part, and then go back and watch it, and then you can come back and watch the beginning again, and you'll appreciate it even more.
The one thing I want to expand on is like I said, it changed the way I look at A New Hope. And even the name of A New Hope. When I grew up, to me, The New Hope was Luke, right? It was the Force coming back in, the new Jedi. That's not what The New Hope means anymore to me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's the fact that they have the plans now, and it's that line that Leia has at the end of what did they give us, and it's hope, and right, and I think that whole part of it. I mean, what is that kind of what it is for you guys as well? Like
for me, I think the first correlation that I thought of, and I saw this later somewhere else, that like it showed the opening title crawl of A New Hope.
Yeah.
And the first thing is it says that the rebellion is coming off of their first big victory.
Yeah.
We just watched that first big victory.
Yeah.
Like,
And
we
even
just got to
then-
experience that.
Like, what, half their fleet got destroyed?
No, it was terrible.
It was a horrible victory, but it was still
It's a victory, though. Yeah.
But it's so interesting to see, like, again, with this new information, like, they attacked the Death Star where literally maybe even a couple weeks before, they almost weren't even a rebellion anymore. Like, they almost broke up.
Yeah,
They have half their fleet gone. They just, like, this is literally, like, you're seeing A New Hope. You're seeing this ragtag group of people that are really even more ragtag than you would even think they are.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the thing I want to bring up, too, is the beginning crawl, right? Or the lack of a
that-
beginning crawl,
I-
right? And it's so cool that they start the movie where it pans up into the black screen, and you expect the big bomb and the crawl, and it hard cuts away from that, and it shifts you straight away from it.
Sharp.
Yeah, it cuts it straight off.
Yeah.
I'm so happy they did that.
And it starts you off going, "Ooh, I don't like this." Like you have this feeling like in your gut of, "Oh, I don't."
You
I don't
might
like
have
this.
had the feeling in your gut that, "No, I don't like this." I had the feeling in my gut of, "Oh, thank God," because I remember on the internet there was so much debate when it was just
Right.
speculation. No, they did the one thing they needed to include to make it Star Wars, and that is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far
Right.
away.
Mhm.
Anything after that is Star Wars. You can never use that in another story. It is Star Wars's own little fairy tale entrance.
It was definitely jarring though, because you see a long time ago and you're just like, oh, here it comes. Wait, it's not going to come. And then it jumps.
The way they did that was so cool because it set you a thing of, this is the same but different. Yes. It sets you up for it and then just takes it away.
Well, and even the title. The title is not Star Wars.
It just says Rogue One.
Rogue One. Yeah, it's Rogue One, a Star Wars story.
Well,
but again, it doesn't even say that
film.
It doesn't say
that. Yeah. It's in Star Wars, but it's not the Star Wars saga.
What was the way you said it? It's not a Skywalker story.
Right. Yeah,
for the first time, which is really cool.
Like it's still like related to that story, but it's not
about
solely
them.
about them. Yeah. Like no, like it's not. Like they're just in it.
Let's get into characters a little bit.
Yeah.
We saw some characters coming back. So the Vader thing. Personally, I think they use Vader a little too much.
Same here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
same with Tarkin.
I would agree with Tarkin, but I mean, we saw Vader, twice?
Well, the thing is, how cool would it have been if Kranich doesn't go see Vader, right, on Mustafar? They don't have that scene, right? The scene doesn't exist. So the first thing you see of Vader is just the red lightsaber going up.
Oh.
That would have been
at
the very end.
At the very end.
It's almost like
like you don't see Vader at all, and then all of a sudden you just hear the voice, you hear the breathing, and then the saber goes off, and you go, oh shit.
Yeah.
Because then you don't know he's in this movie yet, and you're like, where is he? And then all of a sudden he just comes out and he goes to town. That would have been almost like
that would have been pretty cool,
right?
Yeah.
Like if that's the only time that you see him is just going on the warpath.
But then we got Darth Vader dad puns.
Right. We got choke on your ambition.
I feel like that would have been like too much, right? Because you're going straight into that. You're seeing Darth Vader for the first time, and then you're like starting to piece together. Oh my god, that's the ship. That's the ship from the end of A New Hope. Oh my god, and you're going straight into it, and then Leia turns around and she's like, "It gives us hope." You know, like that would have been. It would have been too much. We would have had to walk out. We would all been going like, "Oh my god!" Like.
But like, just imagine the hype moment of just like the saber going off.
What? There's like 3 or 4 Vader scenes. Like I don't know if they.
Well, there's the well, technically 3 because he goes to Kranich, then he tells them to pack his ship or to send his ship,
and then the bit at the end,
and then the bit at the end.
With Saber,
So he's like a 3-second thing where he's like, prepare my ship, and then they go on. They show his shuttle going to the stranded carrier. So
I want to talk about Tarkin. Right, because that's like the issue. I feel like for most people about this, the character that has the actor who's been dead
for a long time, for a very long time,
which has been a whole weird moral issue in Hollywood for a few years now. Because the first time I can think of it was there was an ad that used. They were originally going to try to cast an Audrey Hepburn lookalike, and they couldn't find one that they thought looked good enough, and so they created a CGI Audrey Hepburn.
I remember the hologram Michael Jackson. You guys remember that?
And they're doing this, and there was all this like concern over bringing back
hologram Tupac too.
Yeah, there's an ethical line in there that people were going, is there an actual ethical line to using this because of likeness rights? Like Lucasfilm has probably had likeness rights to him since
he
the
is
70s.
Deceased, so it's like
and so you get permission from the estate to do it, but it's still kind of just this weird thing where like, whatever, he might be dead, we can still use him.
I think there's a big distinction between like we're pulling from film ancient history to bring this to life now. But like moving forward, like when the whole Paul Walker thing happened, from that point onward, now things are getting easier, right? So if you're trying to use older stuff, it's harder. But now in contracts, it's like, we will scan your full body. We will have a 3D scan of you that we will use in emergencies. And like that stuff is like becoming more and more standard.
Sure the insurance companies love that one because then they don't have to worry about bond issues as much.
The thing that I find really interesting though is at what point do they decide that they want to do that method as opposed to, because he is dead, but like what about like the girl that they had for Mon Mothma?
They cast the woman who played her in episode 3 in deleted scenes.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that's where they got
I didn't know that. But I mean she looks just like her. But I'm saying you also have another deceased actor, but instead of doing the same kind of method, you just cast somebody new. But for Tarkin, you don't want to just cast somebody new.
I think it's because I think Peter Cushing is such an iconic actor,
for sure,
such an iconic part, and like
it's a little harder to replicate.
And so first seeing him, they kind of do a bait and switch with you a little bit because they have his back turned the entire time.
And I thought that's what they were
in the
going
beginning,
do.
and I was like,
stay.
And I was like, cool, maybe they'll use keep cheap camera tricks to make
because
him be there.
Because you can also even see kind of the reflection of this is how they're going to get around, Uncanny Valley.
Kind of like with Leia, where it's real quick. It's you don't even have
But Tarkin's in a lot of the movie.
Yeah,
he's in a significant amount of scenes, and I think the voice actor they grabbed was the voice actor from the Rebels
I'm gonna,
cartoon series.
Look it up right now.
I think he probably had as much screen time as the pilot guy.
Yeah.
And those are both fairly integral to the story, and one of them is dead.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's huge.
So my fiance Jenny is not a huge Star Wars fan. She loves the movies, she watched the cartoons with me, but she's not a huge kind of nut. Mm-hmm. And so her question to me was, is Tarkin, could they have did it without Tarkin? And my thing was no, because he's such an integral part of what the Death Star is, and
anything with the Death Star and Star Wars
needs Tarkin. To me, it needs Tarkin.
They couldn't have done it justice, but they could have done it.
Sure,
right?
But would the film have hit you as hard emotionally or connected as well without Tarkin?
No, it wouldn't have.
It's according to IMDb, it is not the same voice actor. However,
they grab.
I don't know. I'm gonna look that up next.
See, then it gets tricky too, because are they pulling sound clips?
Well, that's what I was saying to Charles, is that when animators go into this stuff, what they'll put for them is all the facial examples from all the movies that this guy has done. When he's playing Tarkin, they'll have all the sound clips from other movies he's done, and they put it all together to try to match it the best possible way that you can. You and I talked a little bit about this, Chris, started to look a little uncanny after a while.
Yeah, I mean, the first scene you see him in, it's not bad, because he turns around for a quick second, and then you're like, oh, okay.
You're so oh crap, it's Tarkin. And you're not looking at
but there's times where where he has the big scene after they after they destroy Jeddah, and he has that big scene where he's talking with Kranich. The entire scene is between the two of those characters, and that is the facial expressions in there are so uncanny, and you're just watching him the whole time. You're not even paying to the performance that Kranich is giving it and the anger that he has. You're just paying attention that looks wrong.
Yeah.
I think the real question for me is okay, so they chose to recast Mon Mothma.
Sure.
Right? But she had such a small part. There was probably, even with deleted scenes, 5 scenes that she's in?
Mm-hmm.
And the same with I don't think she's as iconic as a character as Tarkin is.
No.
And even in the original trilogy, I don't even think so.
Red hair in the white dress. You're okay, yeah.
Right, it's that chick.
Yeah.
Okay. But point being that, why, if you're going to do a CG character and you're going to recreate a character with computer graphics and you're going to also try to pull old voice files and stuff like that, why wouldn't you do it with Mon Mothma? Why do it with Tarkin?
I think,
why recast Tarkin when he's going to have that many more lines?
I just had a thought. So Mon Mothma, again, the white dress, red hair, you know who it is. With Tarkin, it's hard with an Imperial uniform.
They're all the same.
That's
because when you're looking at an Imperial uniform, you're like, is that the same character?
Right.
Is that because they all look if you lined up all these Imperial officers together, I couldn't point you out. Yeah. That's the dude in that scene, or that's the dude in that scene. They all kind of blend together. Mm-hmm. And with someone as iconic as Tarkin,
it would have to be perfect.
It has to be perfect casting.
It has to be perfect casting.
And if you can't find that person, then you just gotta.
It just might not exist.
Gotta bite the bullet.
So while I'm trying to figure out the voice theme, first off, the voice actor from Rebels, who does a fantastic job of Tarkin, actually voiced Admiral Radis. I believe that's the Mon Cal Admiral. Yeah. Is voiced by the guy who does. Is voiced by the guy who does Tarkin's voice for Star Wars Rebels.
Weird.
According to an article in Hollywood Reporter, apparently Gareth Edwards was looking to recast Tarkin,
and they couldn't find it. Right?
John Knoll, who's a big guy at ILM, big in visual effects, was like, "No, I think we can do it digitally." So apparently that's where they started. When they were first thinking, how do we include Tarkin? That was the point where it went from, well, how do we kind of sort of wedge him in without causing a problem, to be like, let's just full on go on Tarkin.
But, I know that, and maybe this is a little bit of just our own eyes for it, is I've talked to some people that have seen it, and to them, it's uncanny. They don't see it as CGI. It does not stand out to them whatsoever.
And what's funny is you also, on the flip side, you get the apocryphal people who aren't also involved heavily in watching film or making film or anything like that, who are like, oh man, that looked bad. So it seems like everyone is all over the place with
all
Tarkin.
over the spectrum.
Yeah, I agree, because Kelly and I walked out of the film and we both went, Kelly was like, wow, yeah, I thought that was bad. I thought this was bad. I thought this was bad. But Leia looked good. And I was like, no, Tarkin looked good. Tarkin looked good. Tarkin looked good. Leia looked bad. So I think that, again, is subjective,
Right. It's all your eye.
Let's get right to the point, though, is the balls of ILM to be like, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
And Lucasfilm
to have him in there as much as he's in there.
Yeah.
Clearly they can, because it's a lot of work to do. To have, just the lighting to make him look like he belongs there.
Right.
And for how many scenes he's in.
Well,
it's crazy.
the closest thing we've seen sort of in recent memory is the stuff that Marvel's doing, right? With Ant-Man and with Civil War.
Robert Downey Jr. de-aged, but you also have the same thing. You can even see an earlier version of that in Tron Legacy.
Yes, with
which I think that one's Jeff Bridges, and that one's like.
But you can see them getting progressively better and better. But like again, Robert Downey Jr. It's for one scene in Civil War, and for Ant-Man again, it's one scene in Ant-Man, and like for Michael Douglas, and like Tarkin's in a good 10 minutes of this movie.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a lot of time.
A lot.
And like to be fair, it isn't very low lighting. They keep it low. They keep it low lighting so they don't have to do a lot with kind of shading and shadows.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he's in there quite a bit. And I did watch Force Awakens this morning, and the line "Fire when ready" was pulled almost directly from. I'm like pretty sure it's pulled directly from the.
I believe it. Yeah.
So you did bring up Leia.
Yeah,
that's the other returning character here, the last one.
Well,
there's a lot of cameos.
There's a lot of cameos.
There's definitely a lot of cameos.
The big one is Leia at the end. That sort of gets everyone excited. The first time I saw it, I thought it looked great, and I was like,
I think that's going to be me too.
The first time I saw it, I was like, that looks fantastic, and then I walked out, and then I think I was so excited that I see who it is, and she was only on there for like maybe 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That like, okay, it's not bad. And then the second time I saw it, I was like, oh. Something like her face is a little too round, and like she's turned slightly. Mm-hmm. Her cheeks are too red. Like there's something about it that's a little weird.
Isn't it amazing how we can just like so nitpick something that's like not even like our thing? You know?
Yeah, but you're probably the same way, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You're nodding with me the entire way.
Here's the thing. To me, it looked like you took a 2D image of her face. And you bent it around a 3D model.
Right.
And then, for some reason, they chose to put the camera over here and have her look, like, around over her shoulder at it.
Right.
And that was the failure. Like, if you had just showed her dead on, it would have been fine. Like, it would have been okay.
There was a part of me that almost wish they didn't shoot it that way, where, like, you only maybe see her turn and you get, like, the side of her face rather than the full-on effect.
Well, let's be honest. If she pulled her hood down and you see those fucking cinnamon buns, you know who
it is.
Well, dude, you can know who it is just when he opens the door and you see the white vein.
You know who it is.
But there is some excitement, I think, in that reveal because, I mean, you were saying, like, you don't think you realize
I was so excited.
Because you're so excited.
I was so excited.
I think that was me, too, because I was just like, oh my god, she turned around. Oh my god, it's Leia. Like, it's Carrie Fisher. Like, it looks just like her.
And then
when you think about it, you're like, okay, maybe it wasn't that good. Like, I need to go see this again.
But again, the line where she says, like, just saying hope, right? Like, that ties the whole movie together so
tingles,
well.
like shivers. Like,
it really does.
Good.
I really apprecited the use of Bail Organa.
Sure,
because
it was very light and it was very nice.
They were like, "What's the best part of the prequels?" Bail Organa. Like nobody was pissed off at him. Nobody disliked him.
Everyone was like, "Man, we need more Jimmy Smiths."
Well, and I think the cool thing was like that really like solidifies the connection between the prequels and the original trilogy because there's Darth Vader and you see him becoming Darth Vader and there's all of the Anakin and the reference to the Clone Wars but this is like. You see the same face.
Yeah.
It's like a handoff, you know what I mean? Which was really cool. And, you know, there's his faded line of like, well, I'm going to go to Alderaan now.
Go back
like,
and tell him ready
time
for
to
war.
get blown up. Like, so.
It's like, and he's dead. Yeah. There's no retconning your way out of that one, Lucasfilm. Hey everyone, just wanted to take advantage of the break in the episode to remind you that on Saturday, May 6th, we are going to be live streaming some Star Wars games at twitch.tv/Team Bluepost. The stream will start at 1 p.m. Pacific time. If you are unable to watch us live, or this is the future and you've just discovered our podcast and want to go back into the past and watch the stream, videos will be posted to YouTube at a later date. Other than that, enjoy the rest of our discussion on Rogue One.
So, tentacle monster.
Tentacle monster.
Right. Okay. So my issue with that sequence was not the tentacle monster because we're not strangers to tentacle monsters in Star Wars fiction.
I'm Japanese.
Right?
No, I'm not.
Right. Of course. That's great.
What is it? Rathars now?
Yeah. Well, no. So there's the Rathars. There's the trash compactor monster. Right. And now we got this one that sucks your brain. Okay, fine. Whatever. My issue was that Saw Gerrera was like, bummer that I have to use this tentacle monster to suck out your mind and like find out it's going to make sure you're not telling lies. Oh, but it can like make your mind go away. And then
it'll leave you insane.
It'll leave you insane, right. Yeah. So then he's in a jail cell, the pilot, and he's like, he's all insane. And then he just magically
Like,
recovers.
the pilot trigger word, like I'm fine.
Like, yeah, it was like a sleeper agent in reverse. It was like once you said pilot, he was like, "Oh yeah, I am a pilot."
I mean, he was woozy for most of that sequence, but
right.
like,
but I think I got the impression that it was going to like irrevocably,
But there was a qualifier, like it may.
That's cheap.
To me, it was the thing of that scene. A, didn't need to happen.
No.
And then B, when Jin shows up, Saul Guerrero still asks her if it's a trap.
Yeah.
He knows it's true.
Some weird editing choices in there, I guess. But yeah, that's weird.
Again, there's big problems with the movie, but I love it so much.
No, it's so great.
That's the thing.
Every movie has flaws. But
we sound like we're really tearing it apart when really
we loved it.
Well, that's the sign of, I think a good fan is to be willing to be critical of a piece, but at the same time, still love it.
So let's get into the meat and potatoes here a little bit. To me, the first half of the movie is kind of slow.
It's hard to get your footing. Opening scene is fine. They tell you about, Jin and
That's
Dad.
your call.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But then you suddenly have this person's on this planet, this person's on this planet, this person's on this
It's
planet.
like episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, who are these people? Where are you going? What planets are you on? Is this the important one or is that the important one? I don't know what I'm supposed to grab onto here. I can't get my feet on the ground.
But I do like the fact that they did use these the title cards to
that was
let you know
useful.
exactly where you are.
But the reason is they had to.
Yeah,
because they're cutting all over the place. Yeah,
because there's points where later in the film it's like, oh yeah, they're still doing that because they were all of a sudden settled on a single planet for like longer.
I think the first one is Edu. When they go to Edu, it appears again, and I was like, oh yeah, right. That's right.
That's right. Like
Edu, and then again, I also had the same thing with what's the final planet? It's
Scarif.
Yeah.
For me, I think the hardest part was the beginning because they were cutting all over the place. They were going to this planet, they were going to this planet, they were going to this planet, and like you said, they didn't really introduce this main character. You're like, okay, it's the girl.
I wanted to know what has Jin been doing? Because they say that she's some kind of thief or something, but like instead we get this whole scene with Cassian shooting some guy in the back. I'm like, I don't care about that. Like I want to see why is Jin in prison or why is she
forging? What
was it? Forging Imperial
documents, having illegal weaponry or like housing of illegal weaponry,
right?
And like just general like being a badass.
What has she been doing? Though?
She also talks about how she was with Saw Gerrera,
and then he left her. Yeah,
16.
So you assume that she just kind of was on her own for a while.
But it's like, first off, she's with like a major rebel fighter,
right?
So she's been with him till she was 16. You can only assume that she's just on the underbelly of society.
But it's like you look at something like the opening sequence in Force Awakens with Rey, where it's got this shot of these gorgeous shots of her like scavenging for parts and stuff, and you're kind of like, this is what she's been doing. She's been making by with ends meet, getting her food. Like
this is what Jin's doing. She's in jail,
right? And
but this is day in a life. This is day in a life. This is what you can assume, even though we're only seeing it once. This is what she does every single day.
Right. This is her routine.
With Felicity Jones, you don't see the day in the life. You see like, oh, and she's getting captured, and she did this one time, and she used to be with Saw Gerrera, and there's a lot of turbulence with her.
To me, I think I made the assumption of she's in jail, and then when they rescue her, she's on the way to a work camp. So I'm assuming that she's in a work camp.
So how old do we think that this character is supposed to be?
I'm assuming 20s? In her early 20s.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Because 16 Saw Gerrera, and you would assume she says years.
I mean, she's been in prison that whole time. Then
maybe not the whole time,
right?
But like doing
a good chunk,
Well, general in and out of jail,
right?
Help narrow it down.
Living the thug life. I don't know.
Right.
Wikipedia has her born 22 years before the Battle of Yavin.
When did she die?
And she dies, of course, like 3 days before the Battle of Yavin. Okay, so she's 22 years old. If she left her at 16,
3 days. I had not put that together. That's 3 days from the time they get the plans to the time they blow the Death Star.
Rogue One is maybe a couple of hours before the beginning of A New Hope.
Definitely.
Yeah, sure.
Right? You got to think it's maybe 3 to 4 days what A New Hope takes place in.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Right?
That's definitely true, yes. That puts Jin at like a couple of years older than Luke and Leia. Because they're supposed to be like, what, 16?
Yeah, 19.
19. Okay, wow. So they're like almost the same age.
But yeah, I mean, we also met a lot of new characters.
Yeah.
And all of them died.
In tragic ways.
But I mean, I think we can all probably agree it was good that all of them died.
I was actually happy that all of them
died. Because I remember kind of going, I know they're all going to have to die. I kind of wish they wouldn't, but at the same time, I'm glad that they did this.
Right.
Because it's dark. I didn't think they were going to do.
The thing that I am upset about is that everyone got their moment except for Jin and Cassian. I would have loved it if Cassian had died when he got shot. When he got shot and he died, and then Jin found some other way to get out of it. and then if she was alone on the beach watching the explosion come towards her, to me that's more poetic. Because she didn't get her moment.
There was some weird love story that seemed to come out of nowhere.
At the end. When they get in the elevator?
I feel like, for me, there was almost this weird scene between Cassian and Jin that, like, got deleted. Like, it's my honest thought is right between her getting mad at him for almost shooting her father and then arriving at Yavin and then him going, we're behind you. It's almost like there's something
the beginning
there.
Of a romance in there that they were like cut out for time or something.
Yeah, like I feel like there's a scene that probably got missed, and
I'm happy they didn't go that way.
Yeah, I'm happy they didn't go that way.
Yeah,
but the hints of it were too strong towards the end, where you can't be like, "Oh, was there like some?" No, there was obviously supposed to be some sort of thing between the two of them.
If you had seen Jin accepting her death on the beach alone, it would have been really sad.
It would have been very sad.
The fact that she has somebody there and they're both accepting it together.
Right. I mean, like, and to me,
helps,
that's the only qualifier for that relationship is because they're going to face their death. They know they're going to die together.
They're going to die
That's why
together.
they did it, I think.
But the thing for me is you do get a hint of a moment, and I feel like to fix this, they should have expanded upon this more to make it less of a romance and more of a I understand you. Is he's like, I've been fighting the Empire since I was 6, and that seems to be a common thread in Star Wars right now. If you look at Star Wars Rebels, Ezra's been fighting or stealing from the Empire since he was a kid. She's been fighting since she was. Jin has been fighting since she was a kid. Cassian's been fighting since he was a kid. Mm-hmm. There's this constant thread of we have the same enemy, and I almost wanted him to phrase it differently, like we're behind you. To be more like I don't want to be a part of a rebellion that's going to run away from a fight that we've been heading towards for so long.
I personally didn't mind it. I know Garrett, one of our friends that went with us, he liked it too. And I remember him and I were like, we thought it was fine. Like, because if they had like a makeout session on the beach or something, that would have been that would have been too far.
To me, the one scene that messes it up is when they get in the elevator to go down to the beach,
and there's that like,
where their faces are like, and I was like, that's too much. But everything else is fine.
It needed to be.
The hug
was fine. It's just that there was that scene in the elevator.
I agree.
From
and I love that she's the one looking into the inferno.
Yeah.
I actually had a problem with Cassian coming back to life.
Yes.
So like
that bothered me
because like he Captain White Cloak, whatever his name is.
Yeah.
What is his name?
Krennic.
Okay, so he shoots him. He falls down really far.
Yeah.
And
like bangs on a couple of things on the way, and then like splays out at the bottom of the thing. And Jin's like, "Well, I guess I'll keep going," and keeps going. And then he just like shows up later in time
and
to save the day.
And not enough time passed. Like I feel like he got up there faster than Jin did, and she didn't fall down.
Considering like how much shit he hit on the way down.
Right, and they got shot.
Yeah. We're talking a lot about things that we're kind of ripping apart. I really appreciate the fact that they covered the hugest plot hole.
Well,
in
they
the
were
whole
like,
Star Wars universe.
No, it was on purpose.
Right, it was on purpose. Well, and I love the connections between everything. In A New Hope, Luke's call sign is Red 5. And then in this movie, Red 5 breaks off him and dies. And so, like, the only reason Luke is even on that mission in the first place is because this other guy fucked up and died.
Because they're like, shit, well, we need another pilot.
God, we need another
Here's this kid who just showed up. I guess we'll put him on.
Well, there's also that in, like, it's Rogue Squadron. Red Squadron becomes Rogue Squadron, and now we know where the name comes from.
Right, and then also, I was watching Empire Strikes Back this morning as well, when they send out a search party to look for Han and Luke, the pilot that's flying is Rogue 2.
Yeah.
And they're looking for Luke and
he's the leader of Rogue Squadron.
Oh yeah. The other one that again maybe kind of have more respect for A New Hope is when at the beginning of New Hope, that's the maddest we've ever seen Vader. We've never seen Vader as pissed off as in the beginning of A New Hope, right? When he shows up on that ship, on that
he's yelling. And he's yelling the Empire. He never.
Yeah, he's yelling the entire time. He's getting angry at people. He's yelling around. He doesn't even listen to Leia. He's just kind of angry, and now we know why.
Because he's been made a fool of.
Yeah, and because he just missed them.
Yeah.
Literally.
And the thing that's crazy to me and kind of makes it more brave and makes Leia a little more brave is the thing of she knows that he knows.
Yeah.
But she's
the whole ship knows that he knows what's really going on.
And they're still like, I'm on a diplomatic mission.
They're still lying to him in his face. But they know that he knows.
Yeah.
But like to keep that story and to keep that like the whole crew to have that same story is very brave and very noble.
Yeah. In the very beginning of Rogue One, there's 2 stormtroopers, and I think it's when they're transporting Jin in the like prison ship,
right?
And they're talking about speeders, and they talk about how the T-14.
Oh no!
It was on the beach.
Oh, it was on the beach.
On the beach,
right before Donnie Yen takes him out.
but they're talking about the T-14 just became obsolete.
Yeah,
and so then in A New Hope, I think Luke mentions that
it's the T-15.
He has a T-16.
Oh, 16.
But the T-15 just like he has the new one.
They continue with little things like that.
Yeah.
That's really
well, like it's the thing I was mentioning to Logan earlier. After Jin presents her big kind of case to go to Scarif, it's on the loudspeaker. She's they're calling for General Syndulla.
And we both like, did anyone else catch that?
Yeah, so General Syndulla is to me, it references Hera in Rebels. If you watch the cartoon, she's trending to being a general herself.
Yeah, she's commander.
So she's commander currently. So she's trending to be that way. By the time A New Hope hits, then she could still be alive.
I just remember kind of like, I didn't like...
I squealed in the theater and I looked around.
I don't think I squealed, but I remember looking around being like, did anyone else just catch that?
And nobody else did.
No one else caught that. But like on the loudspeaker, they're calling for General Syndulla, which is awesome. Like that's such a little thing. Right.
I mean, but no matter what, like, what kind of things you're looking for in it, you're going to find, like, some little detail that is fun and creative that you really like. I was telling Charles, one of the things I really like, when you see Darth Vader, you see, like, his broken body in, like, a tank of liquid.
Oh, the back to tank?
Right, and you're like, so this is what he's not, when he's not in the suit, when Vader goes night-night, whatever you want to say, like, he goes in this tube, like, and as a kid, I was always like, does he sleep in the armor? Like, you look at that kind of stuff, they thought of that. They're like, no, when he's not in his suit, like, this is what he has to do.
Right.
I mean, and even on a smaller note, they're like, yeah, we have to steal the Death Star plans. And I'm going, this is space, but a long, long time ago, do they have, like, blueprints on paper? Is it on a computer? What is this thing going to look like? And they go in, and she's got this little thing they're moving around, and they pull out the archives, and it's, like, this big clunky drive-looking thing.
Yeah,
like,
perfect.
It's great. Like, just to see some of these things that you hear them talk about, and you're just like, but what does this physically look like? It's great.
The idea I was talking about earlier of, like, the scale of the Empire.
Yeah.
That place has... The Empire is so big, they have a force field protected planet just for their fucking blueprints, okay?
Just for archives, yeah.
Like, not even like their full archives, just blueprints for structures and shit.
Their development team, obviously, just all the little things, like, you can tell people just had fun with that stuff.
Oh, yeah. No, it's fantastic. And
they talk about a lot of criticism is, like, always around, like, Easter eggs for the fans.
Yeah.
And it's like, a lot of those Easter eggs are so buried so deep.
The two that were hit over the head were the two dudes from the cantina.
Of course.
Oh, God,
and then, and
that one I was kind of like, why?
I didn't need, first of all, they've had a crazy week, okay?
Yeah.
Those poor guys.
Okay.
Like,
they've had a crazy week.
We now know why they were
at the cantina.
Okay.
Yeah.
The worst kind of offender of it, and I don't know why it's there, and I would have loved to have them just in the background somewhere, or just have them walking by or something like that.
I'm guessing
was R2 and
3PO, yes.
You don't need that. Like
we did not need that.
You don't need them talking about how it's a mistake that they're going to Scarif, and like I don't know.
Of course 3PO thinks it's a mistake. We don't need him to tell us that. We already know 3PO is scared of everything.
I would have loved it if they're just next to Princess Leia as she gets the disc, right? Like I don't need them. I don't need a separate sequence of them standing there.
Doesn't mean they weren't fun. Doesn't mean you get excited to like. You still are like, oh, that's really funny. Oh, that's really cool.
But it took me out of it a little bit because the scene with Scarif is like the thing with Scarif is it's the triumphant moment of like, okay, the rebels are coming. They're coming to help you.
I think it must have been like they had to give the audience moment to like, ha ha ha, or else they would like be like so worked up.
Well, I think everyone needs to sit and thank Alan Tudyk for doing a unbelievable job with K2SO and making us being the only part of that movie that was lighthearted and funny. So my girlfriend, again, not a huge Star Wars fan, she cried a little bit with the hologram or when Galen dies in Jin's arms, like a little bit. And she's straight bawling when K2SO dies, right? Like straight bawling, and then like when everyone else dies, she's kind of like, oh, okay, that's sad. Like a little bit of tears, but like she's like heaving when K2SO's dying. Like
but dude, K2SO had like the hero's death.
Oh yeah, when he yells climb, and I go, oh shit. No! And then, like, you see all the stormtroopers around him, and you're like, oh, he's done.
Charles dropped the bad Firefly line on me after the movie.
Well, after the movie, you did it. I remember that.
Like a leap on the... I was like, no!
They killed Alan Tudyk, and they... okay, so... awesome. So I wanted to bring up, what was everyone's favorite little new thing? So, like, it could be K2SO, it could be, like, a new weapon, or a new ship.
I love the idea of Guardians and like of Donnie Yen's character, and like I love that idea that there's nothing left for them to protect, but they're still there.
Yeah,
and they're still just they're doing what they can. And I love that fact of like Jedi are gone, the Empire's taken over, they're raiding the thing, but I mean like what else are we gonna do?
Yeah.
This is what we believe in. And so we're just gonna stay here.
Yeah.
See, I was gonna say something like similar to that. Is one of the things I like is this group of people that band together, and on top of that is the fact that there is no white male amongst them.
I was very offended.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we've been discriminated against.
We've been discriminated against.
But your lead is a white female, but you have a female in a leading role again, which is fantastic. But then, there's two guys that are Asian. Cassian is played by a guy that's from Mexico. Like, this is a variety of people, a variety of, like, really cool characters that I think seeing all kind of come together is really, really, really cool for Star Wars. Yeah. They're doing such great work with, like, keeping diversity, but also at the same time,
at the same time, I don't feel like it's shoehorned. Like, I don't feel like they're trying to do that.
But with this, it's like they're creating new characters, and it's like, I mean, my first thought was just what great characters these were, and then I was like, wait a minute, was there a white male?
Yeah, because
it's a secondary thought. It's not something that jumps into your mind.
Because I think we've been talking about the movie after watching it for at least, I want to say 15 minutes before you even went, hey, there was no white male.
Did you guys notice this? Like, yeah.
Right. So what about you, Logan?
Kind of building on Chris's is the fact that this isn't the first time Lucasfilm has done this idea, but I like the fact that there's this religious idea around the Force that exists beyond the Jedi and the Sith. That there could be more to it than just, this is what the Jedi use.
Right. Well, and it's like, we've always experienced the Jedi and the Sith as like people who bend the Force to their will, who like use the Force to make them do things, as opposed to like, we see this new character now who doesn't use the Force.
He just
believes in it.
He's just in it. He's,
he is the Force.
He is and the Force is with him.
Yeah. Like, Donnie Yen, I honestly was one of my favorite characters walking out. Like, I sometimes found myself doing that little mantra in my head.
So mine is really shallow compared to all you guys'. So my favorite thing was his stick bow and arrow.
The crossbow.
It was like they had gone from the prequels and they were like, it'd be super cool if he had like a crossbow gun. And then they were like, no. Simple. Let's step it up. Let's go with just full-blown bow and arrow stick laser gun sniper rifle stick.
The cool thing, my favorite part was when they're on Edu and he goes full Donnie Yen, where he pulls out his inner Hong Kong Kung Fu movie, and he blows on his hand first, and then does it, and then takes out the TIE fighter.
Yeah,
that was fucking really awesome.
I mean, it was one blast from a handheld weapon that took out a vehicle. Like, that's pretty amazing.
And not only that, he lined up the shot perfectly to where it would hit and take out a gun turret.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's one of those ones where, because it's already been established that this guy is super connected to the Force, that you totally like, of course this blind guy would do that.
I was gonna say,
why would it be anything else?
He's blind, and he uses like a bow and arrow type weapon, like where your eyes are, you would think what you need, and like the fact that he uses, I guess, the Force in a way it's cool.
What was the one wow moment for you? Or the one moment where you just went kind of, holy shit? Because so for me there are two of them. For me it was, of course, the end scene with Vader. Right? It's Vader on the warpath.
I think that's one for everyone. So let's just say that's
one across the board.
For me, it wasn't like Vader. It wasn't like, oh my god, look, it's Vader killing dudes. Like, that's so cool. For me, it was the scene of the guy getting stuck by the door.
Oh, and just desperately
showing terror. Pure human terror. Like, clawing at anything to try to survive. And then he gives up on survival. It's like, oh my god, just take this. Like, I'm gonna die. Yeah. And that was like, that was like a Saving Private Ryan moment for me. I was like, oh my god, like, whoa.
As kids, we knew Darth Vader was scary. We knew Darth Vader was like, we know the Empire was scary. This is a different kind. Like, I'm glad that people that are just getting into Star Wars now, or like kids that are just growing up with Star Wars, are going to understand the level of fear that like was supposed to be in the original trilogy that just didn't come across.
It just didn't hit, yeah.
Right. And like, this shows the true terror and what it is, and like why people are fighting so hard.
Well, and that kind of brings it into like what my wow thing was for me, and it's so simple, and it probably was for a lot of people, is every main character that you were introduced to in that crazy jump opening sequence where you can't figure out who's who and what's what, all of them that you grow to love die.
Yeah.
And you know what's going to happen. Once they start dying off, you're like, yeah, everyone's going to die, just like I thought it was. But that moment at the end where they all have kind of accepted their death and you just see it and they have these long, long shots, it's heavy. And something for me as a kid, I guess, is you see Vader, like you said, he's scary. Like Luke, Leia, Han, they all live. Everybody lives. There's not this sense of finality. These people are gone. It is done. Like, this movie bleeds into movies that have already existed. We know they're not in them. They're not coming back. They died.
Yeah.
When the Rebel fleet shows up, and I looked at this happened, and me and my dad both looked at each other and went, "Holy shit!" It's the moment where literally hundreds of TIE fighters pour out of. Like, we've never seen that many just pour out of a facility before. Yeah. Usually, you're used to seeing maybe like 10 or 20. You're like, that's a lot. And then all of a sudden, just like hundreds, like a swarm of them, and you're like, oh, that's different.
There's a lot of moments like that in this movie where you're just like, this is war. Like, this is brutal. I mean, because I mean, for me, watching Star Wars, it never really clicked to relate that to, you know, the war we see on TV and stuff like that. But it's like, this movie really kind of hits it that this is real scary stuff.
I mean, it always has been, but we've always seen it from this perspective of one or two people who haven't been invested their whole life. Like, we're always kind of like we follow Luke or we'll follow Anakin or whatever, and they haven't been fighting this fight for their entire lives, struggling to get by. So for me, the cool thing was, and the wow moment was, seeing the precision strikes. Seeing these surgical single ignition strikes to just destroy a city. And like, it might plunge the entire planet into a nuclear winter or something crazy, but like, imagine, like, to me, the scarier thing is not the thing that can blow up planets. Right. The scarier, or systems with a Starkiller base. The scarier thing to me is like, let's get something that can strike from orbit that can kill one dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because then, if they can hit that one dude, I mean, you know, I'm making it smaller than it really was. It was one city, whatever. But like, if you can make it that specific, then that means that people are watching that specifically.
Right.
You know, and that's a totalitarian society. That's a place where if you step out of line, you know, there's no smugglers in that kind of world.
Yeah.
There's no, you can't do that kind of stuff.
Well, like, and even then, like, the moment where, you know, when K2SO says there is no horizon, right? When he's ready to fly the ship over, and you just see the mountain of rubble coming towards everyone, and you're like, and or when they fly away, when they finally get out, and you see the plume of smoke going into the atmosphere,
the mushroom cloud,
and
you're like, oh,
that's so terrifying. But at the same time, realizing like that is it on its lowest setting.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that wasn't what the Empire wanted at that point, but they could have.
Yeah, they could have.
Yeah.
For me, the wow moment was, and I think we talked about this a bit already, but the fact that we saw Gold Leader and Red Leader and these people from A New Hope, and realizing those guys literally went from this to that. They've been fighting for their lives for like basically a few days. And it was just kind of like, and especially, we've already seen Tarkin, we've already seen, you know, at this point, so it's already like, the CGI. But you could tell that this wasn't just CGI done, that you could tell this was like actual footage they had found. Right. It was just like, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my god, it's Gold Leader and Red Leader. It's just like, here are these two characters who I'm sure have names in the expanded universe that I don't know, but I don't care. Because right now I'm just excited about the fact that I know that these few fighters who were at the Battle of Yavin were here at this one earlier and part of that fight.
Right. I walked into this movie expecting something darker, something more serious, something that's going to make me think and feel, and it was in a different way, and that's what I got, and I was very happy with it.
And as someone who has wanted a darker Star Wars, because I think that's what we needed for the prequels, like this walking out this tickled my fancy. I could have even dealt with it being a little bit darker, but I also know that that's me and that's not the general audience. So
I think the other thing too is that, like, for me, I didn't know how I was going to like it because my favorite thing about Star Wars is Jedi. Like, I love lightsabers, I love the Force, I love all these, like, mystic dudes, I love all of this cool fighting and, like, this philosophy that comes with it. So, like, take that whole section out of Star Wars. Like, that's the iconography. That's what you think of when you try to tell a 10-year-old what Star Wars is lightsaber battles and stuff. Take that out, and can you still have a good Star Wars movie? The answer is yes.
We just say that now we understand that the Death Star shoots lightsabers.
Yes.
Right? That was like the first thing. I was like, wait, so it's lightsaber crystals?
It shoots lightsaber?
The same thing.